So, I'm Will, I'm the Bald Book Geek, and I reread the Hunger Games series recently. I picked up the books in hardback, and it's been a very, very long time since I reread them. So going back and rereading them when I first discovered the books when they first came out, let's talk about them. The Hunger Games are responsible for starting the dystopia trend. The Hunger Games started it, but they always stood out as the better of the books. Things that followed, the Selection series, stuff like Divergent, it never quite come close. And let's just discuss this. So, unlike those other series, The Hunger Games has, across all three books, really competent, very strong world building. They're violent, they're dark, and they do explain themselves. The world is explained. The reasons for everything is explained. Unlike other dystopian books, such as, say, Divergent, its closest relative, which has terrible world building, and to be blunt about it, the whole dystopian element and the whole elements of that series is used as a metaphor for teenage struggles, us against the world, and so on. The Hunger Games didn't do that. The Hunger Games is about propaganda. It's actually quite political. It's also about censorship, control. It runs a lot deeper than just us against the world with no actual reason. It was funny rereading them because they are really easily written. I can read through those so fast. But I forgot how good they were. I will say the books do have pacing problems across the board. It's one of those very annoying little downsides to them is the fact that the pacing is completely and utterly all over the place. But it's, there's no such thing as a perfect book. I didn't realise how interesting the characters' relationships with each other were, and the metaphor for Katniss's mother's own depression and own issues, and the fact that these characters go through hell. All of the characters are pulled for a battle. They are teenagers, they are young people. It's been one of those series that just, I genuinely forgot what it was like. It put me back in that mindset. I accept their problems. They were turned into films, you can't get away from that, and I do actually really enjoy the films. But I'm not going to cover them in this video at all, I just want to cover them as they are. I think with The Hunger Games, it started a trend that so many people tried to emulate. So many people tried to copy this and make it bank on the success of them. They started something that kind of burnt itself out. These books set that benchmark, and I think as young adult novels, they're some of the few that are well written and have great use of English and don't talk down to the audience. They cover death, loss, struggles. They cover things that many YA and young adult books shield from. The characters are flawed, they're not perfect. Katniss is not the perfect, I'm pretty but I don't know it girl. She's a pawn in all this. All the characters are, they're all used, they're all left as, they're all just ripped apart. They lose a lot. It's strange going back to this series as an adult, because when I say an adult, I was in my very early 20s when I first read them. Maybe even late teens, and I remember just loving them, but looking at them as a 30-something-year-old, you suddenly realise that what they're about, like I said before, propaganda, censorship, control. They are about reality television, the ideas that were set apart in things like Brave New World and 1984 and A Clockwork Orange, and even things like Battle Royale, which is probably its closest relative. The Hunger Games, I think, will stand apart as a series and stand very much as a series that set a benchmark that no one can ever touch. It seems strange because I remember what a phenomenon they were. I remember the people going crazy, and you know what? I'm proud to say that I own them in hardback, and I'm so happy that I do. They are fantastic, fantastic books. In a weird way, I agree with what Stripped Cover Lit said, that in the first book I could imagine them dying in the end, because that would have been very interesting. 2 martyrs, but obviously it was a series. And the middle book, that Catching Fire, is a very strong book, and The Mockingjay was a very strong book. A lot of people were annoyed that she didn't end up with Gale in the end, but to be honest, she couldn't. Given what they'd went through, given what he had been through psychologically, the trauma he faced, and also these books cover PTSD beautifully. The trauma that they face, they could never be together. Her and Gale were never destined. It wouldn't have worked. Maybe if the Hunger Games had never happened, they would have. And yes, I do agree, Katniss does spend a lot of time moping, and the film does trim the fat, and there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, that's part of the pacing problems that these books suffer, especially the last book, I will say. But once you get into them, and you know, it's there. It didn't need to be left so many pages of her just moping. I kind of understand it, but like I said before, pacing problems in the Hunger Games are there, and it's true of the writer's other work as well. So yes, that's me revisiting the Hunger Games and realising that they are actually as good as I remember, but also they're not perfect. I want to know if you guys have read them. I want to know what you think. It'll be interesting to find out, and also it'll be interesting to find out if you had read them first time around. Did you see the film before the books came out? Or did you see the film first, then read the books? Or vice versa? So tell me what you guys think, and I'll be back at another time. Bye guys.